Welcome back to the English broadcast of the LPL, and we have swapped venues over to Chongqing right now, and this is the first time we're actually not seeing EDG play over there. It is SLICKR rather, because EDG are playing. I saw EDG come up and I was like, EDG versus Vici Gaming today.
Yes, you can read.
I can, surprisingly. And I'm not Fish, I'm Pulse. Hello, I'm taking over the hosting role, and I'm still alongside FLICKR, and hello.
It's actually the main difference between you and Fish. You can read and Fish can't.
But apparently not the case in this one, I guess.
I see you over there, Fish. That was a burn.
But yeah, let's start talking about this matchup. So Vici versus EDG coming in this one. Vici Gaming managed to get their second win the other day against OMG. It was a 2-0 as well, so it was a pretty dominating win. They have been changing some of their rosters recently as well, trying to find solutions, but that is basically, that's the big picture for Vici right now.
Yeah, and it kept their playoff hopes alive, you know, beating OMG, and that's just we kind of called that series like how low can you go. It felt like both teams were doing a limbo, and Vici came out on top. I guess it should be OMG came out on top because of that game's rule set, but that's fine. Now Vici Gaming, what they've decided to do is they are swapping out their roster. They do have it feels like EV evolutions in Snow and Fire Rain coming in, but they have people behind key members like EasyHoon, like Martin, and it is getting a better performance from them. And Vici have been on the rise. The synergy is coming together. I think a lot of this comes back to the fact that Swift was a very late addition, week number 4, coming into the roster, and so he's only been there for, you know, just over a month. So it makes sense that Vici would still be struggling to find that synergy. It's starting to pay off, but you know, frankly, too little, too late.
I mean, it was around the same time that TOP also acquired Marin, and both of them fought each other, and it was just like, "Waha! Here's our super weapon!" And it seems like
activated my trap card.
Exactly. TOP ended up winning, but like Vici have looked better and better with that one. But if we turn our attention to EDG, not without their own struggles, because right now they are behind Snake, and if we are thinking that the other side, the Eastern Conference right now is like top 3 in the LPL, and then Snake is definitively first in the Western Conference, then do the maths, where does that leave EDG?
Okay, controversial opinion. And this is just my opinion. I'm sure the other analysts would argue with me. I believe that if Edward Gaming had faced Snake on the end of the patch 8.5 or 8.4 shift, they actually would have won. I think that I see better macro strategy from EDG, but they had a terrible read on the meta, and it really shows. And this is something that's notorious with Edward Gaming. Whereas Snake, much better read on the meta. SOFM had the game of his life, and so Snake deservedly have the 4th place spot in terms of best or top 4 Rift Rivals representatives possibly in the LPL, but give EDG time. I'm still not ready to count them out and to write them off like, you know, we're never going to see this team at Rift Rivals again, they're donezo. I think EDG still have it in them. It's just a question of, you know, they need more time on patch. Big patch shifts always screw them up.
And of course they are the flagship of the LPL as well, so people do expect a lot from them, but specifically talking about that Snake matchup, you were saying SOFM had the game of his life, or he was facing down Haro, and Haro has been one of the problems for EDG in recent games. It's like if they build a composition around moving bot lane, moving top lane, well, who's the key component in that? The jungler. And often than not, or more often than not, Haro has done something wrong.
I almost want to start like a new segment where it's like being frank with FLICKR. Haro is not a very good jungler. He is a bottom tier jungler in the LPL. It really shows. And the thing is Haro does have his miracle moments. I always like to say from Haro to hero. You know, he finds the incredible Baron steals, he gets those incredible Elder Dragons, and sometimes he does have a game where he just pops off. You know, his pathing against SOFM was probably the best that we've ever seen from Haro, but if that's the best that we've ever seen, and he is still the primary problem of why they're losing that game, then that tells you everything that you need to know about why EDG are suffering in a meta that is so revolved around their mid-jungle synergy in the LPL.
That is a great point though, because from the start of the series to the end of the series, we did see his jungle pathing change.
It was really cool.
Towards to SOFM, and it was actually him triple buffing SOFM in one of those games because he knew that SOFM was going to take his time moving towards his red buff. He wouldn't take it until he starts looking for those ganks, and then he exploited that window. So Haro does have the capacity to do this, but it's obviously how far does that go? Does he need more time? It seems like the answer is yes.
It's the inconsistency as well. It's the fact that you get really low lows with Haro and you get okay highs with Haro. Again, that was probably the best series, again, EDG versus Snake, of Haro's pathing ever. And his champion pool is also really tiny. The Chinese community have this joke that he was the champion coin because he only played 2 champions, Jarvan and Kha'Zix. Now, of course, he's expanded this now. He can pull out the Zac, he can go to the Sejuani. But, you know, when you have that type of reputation coming into the LPL, it means that you're very brittle. And so he forces the likes of Mako, Ray, and Scout to really pull a lot of the weight to find these flex picks and to make room for him in the draft phase.
And Exactly, it's the draft phase, right? Because you can't go towards compositions that really revolve around the jungle doing well early. And at EDG, because they're a relatively fast team, they do like to strike hard and fast in the early and the mid game. And if that isn't working in the jungle, maybe you need to look at different compositions. Maybe you need scaling in the bottom lane, because if you look at the 2 versus 2, you're probably not going to be locked in a 2 versus 2. The enemy jungle is going to come down and ruin your day.
And it's the fact that Snake have made a blueprint that if you don't let EDG get the 2v2, that if you constantly just camp that lane and it comes to a 3v3, chances are that you probably have the better jungler at this point, just from like a numbers, perspective. And tonight it's Swift versus Haro, and I don't automatically give that one to Haro again. Like Swift doesn't have the same synergy with his team. He does speak Mandarin very well, like low key. Swift is probably one of the most fluent career Koreans that we have in the LPL in terms of the language. And again, that's really concerning. Like, you don't want to say that Vici are the favorites in this matchup by any stretch of the imagination, but if Haro is going to be exploited, Swift is a jungler again, where I'm like, yeah, Vici had the stronger jungler.
But it's an in, right? And that's you can't say that in a lot of the matchups for Vici Gaming, but now that they have Swift in the jungle, and you look at the problem for EDG, it's just like, well, this is almost the perfect opportunity for Vici maybe to snag a game here. There's very likely maybe we could go to 3 games because Vici could exploit the jungle, and then if you lose the early game, if EDG decide to put all of their cards in the early game like they have historically done a couple times, then Vici, they could find themselves a win.
It's definitely not out of the realm of possibilities, because again, at cross-conference, when you looked at some of the lower end teams, the LGDs, the TOPs, EDG were still dropping games. They didn't drop the series, but they are definitely dropping a lot of maps. And again, we are on a brand new patch, 8.5. It's not as big of a change from 8.1 to 8.4, but it is, again, where EDG tend to struggle. So we'll see if they can maybe pick up the Swain, if they're going to still have high priority on the Olaf. We have seen Haro play it, but it's just been kind of a weird smattering of champions. Urgot comes to mind.
Great champion, by the way, but
it did win.
It did win. It did technically win, but it was also Renekton we saw out from Ray in the same series. And while he has a massive champion pool, he can go into the weird picks. He plays the meta stuff. He plays the on the fringe picks as well. So if there is a new pick like Swain, he's probably going to be able to play it. So if you look at EDG, they will be able to play around flexes right here. When I look towards Vici, and I'm like, well, I actually don't know what they're capable of in the picks and bans. We take a look at EDG's roster. We'll be Ray in the top lane, Haro, who we were talking about, Scout in the mid lane, iBoy, and Mako.
Your 2 veteran members, of course, Mako and Scout from the previous EDG, and they need to step up and be the leaders for this team because there are still a lot of growing pains. This puppy is fumbling all around the road right now.
We have seen the brilliance from them, though, and usually it has been off the back of Mako's plays and also the fact that he will be shot calling.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, they're a very cute puppy, but on the other side, it's Long, Swift, Easy Hoon, Snow, and Caveman. Now, like I said, they are rotating kind of the EV evolutions behind key members. This time around, it's Glaceon, Snow there instead of Martin, but they do have Fire Rain for that Flareon if Easy Hoon decides to step back.
Oh, the old Mordekaiser main in the mid lane. So I'm ready for that one to come out one day, but indeed, in the bottom lane will be Snow over Martin today, so we'll see what Snow is made of. We did actually see in that game with Snow that he did pick up the MVP, so good stuff, Snow.
MVP to Coach No Face shirt, though. He wears that shirt every single time, and it's like every other coach has like a nice tie, a good blazer, but he's over there rocking the plaid.
I actually think that he just has 10 of the same shirt. So he goes into the wardrobe and he's just like, oh, what's Tuesday? Same shirt, ready to go, ready to lock that one down for the drafting phase.
Yep, and Keith, fun fact, look for this, he actually uses a manga-based book for his draft secrets.
Yeah, with the players' faces on it. It's literally like the players' anime characters. So watch out for that one as we go into Champion Select. For that call, it will be the casters.
Thanks, guys, and you're right. Pulse has replaced me on the desk. I'm here with my friend Raz to cast this next set, and you know what? It's true. I can't read, so I don't need this book. It's useless to me, but what I do have that I don't is more elo than both of them combined. So I'm pretty okay with that. Let's get straight into this next set. It's going to be EDG taking on Vici.
Oh, there we go. Hitting them with the elo, though. But immediately get into this one. Immediately. I like Vici's chances of taking one game.
What?
One game. One game.
Nah,
I have to finish this. I have to finish the sentence. Come back here.
No.
You can't leave me.
I'm getting Pulse back here.
Reason why I'm saying this. Last 3 sets that EDG had, of course, everybody remembers the last one they had going up against Snake, 3-game series. Before that one, going up against LGD, 3-game series. And then before that one, going up against TOP, 3-game series. They do have problems, and it's primarily in the top side of the map with their 2 newer members. They just have, quite honestly, sure, Frost talked about specifically Haro having problems, but it is synergistic problems between both of them, because even though we see carry tops he is overextending and getting caught out time and time again.
And you think Lung and Swift have the answers, so to speak, to the problems that EDG have?
Long and Swift have been working well together. That is one thing. But also, simply put, Swift has been a lot more active on the map.
Okay.
That has been the point, the biggest difference between Swift and the previous jungler Crash, where Swift is constantly looking for fights. If he finds one pickup, Olaf was the earlier discussions, he loves Olaf, then he will continue to move forward, and EDG needs to be ready for that.
So Swift is more proactive on the map. Does that just mean that Haro is not as proactive for EDG? Tell me a bit more about these problems they're having on the top side of the map, because as we approach playoffs, they need to start fixing it. Week 8 is not the time where you say, look, we need to fix problems.
There are holes, there are openings in EDG's armor every single time. I would say making mention of topside, overextending when he was on the Renekton pick, overextending when he was on the Urgot pick. Overextending is fine if you have a bottom play prepared, but if your jungler is based, you have to be aware of the wave pressure that you have. Ray's been a big offender of that, so we have to be aware of those holes. Swift, if he has good enough vision control top side of the map, can look to take them apart.
We'll keep track of that top lane matchup where our into picks and bans for game number 1. Swain, instantly locked in as a first pick for EDG. So far, it's been consistently banned or picked first in today's matches. The first time we'll be playing on 8.5. Shen, Azir, and Tahm Kench for the 3 bans that came out from EDG. Vici, they're going to take away Cassiopeia, Olaf, and Xayah. Alisal and Sejuani locked in as Vici's first 2 picks.
And of course, the Swain one, that is a big one. Great buff to him going into 8.5. LPL gets put into 8.5. First pick, especially on blue side, picking them away from Vici Gaming, they don't get the opportunity to go into the last pick for themselves. Great swap between both top lane and mid lane. We've seen some great creativity from Ray, so it could just be a topside pick. Vici have to be prepared for that. They're holding their solo lane matchups.
Azrael is the lock-in for iBoy as the AD carry of choice for EDG's lineup. Probably going to look towards their mid laner next here. Vici do have the last pick in the first rotation.
Now, the Sejuani pick for Swift, when he's played it throughout, like historically, time and time again when he was a newbie, this pick was such a go sign for him. Every single time ulti was off cooldown, he went towards the mid lane. Or if he had a great split pushing topside, he looked to try and break that split push. So all eyes are on Swift post 6, just because he wants to make those plays happen. The Ryze takeaway is great because Ryze and Sejuani, once you have the ulti available for her, is really devastating for ganks.
Well, 3 carries being picked up by EDG already. Top lane and mid lane can flex between Ryze and Swain. You know, both their champions are playing those respective roles. Vici lock in their top lane of choice first, though. Nara's going to be heading into the top lane here, waiting for the next 2 bans. Vici also going to be playing Snow in this match, so no Martin to be seen.
Yeah, Snow's been more so, I would say, a laning AD carry that we've seen from him. Both Caveman and Snow in the laning phase have found good ground when they went up against OMG. Their second set that they won in this split alone. So if you're EDG, sure, your bottom side of the map is your best side of the map. But you still have to be aware that Vici Gaming will likely try and take it up to you. So holding their AD carry, or at least their bottom side entirely towards for Snow, is interesting to see since they gave Long a safe pick to the top lane that Gnar.
Is it really safe, though?
As safe as you can get.
Ooh, don't know about that anymore.
I would say last series that we saw was a good answer, the Jace. And even then, the Jace had problems in the lane going up against Swain, just because Swain has great gank pressure. Great stun, great slow afterwards, good burst in damage. So I think that's also an answer. I would love to have Swain going up in the top side of the map.
Do you think that either of these 2 picks to go up against them now? Or is it just going to be Swain that is able to go up against Lung's top lane pick here?
I think EDG have the pick of the litter on this one. It really does come to preference. Ryze is great into the top side, into Gnar. Swain is great into Gnar. Gnar is just okay in this matchup just because he looks to just farm it up. Right?
Well, we can also see what their mid lane pick is going to be now as well. Orianna going into the mid lane for EasyHoon. Historically has done well against Ryze.
Orianna, of course, just the range of it. Does well into Ryze, as you mentioned. Also, I prefer it into the Swain. So I think that's just really safe from them, and it gives them the opportunity to play around Snow with that extra bit of shield on top.
We saw mixed bans coming out from both these teams earlier on, targeting AD carries, mid laners, supports, and junglers here. EDG settle for their jungler of choice. Skarner gets locked in for Haro. Vici do have the final pick, and it's going to be an AD carry pick, not one that we usually see reserved for last on the red side.
Yeah, especially since you have Swift, you usually hold it onto the either your jungler or your top laner, but because there's so many blinds going towards Snow, he has the pick of the litter. We get to see what his propensity for this matchup is. I would like to see a Tristana.
Do it.
I would love to see a Tristana.
No. No Tristana, Raz.
Tristana.
I'm kidding. It's probably going to be Tristana.
Yeah. Oh. I mean, he could really go any way about it. I would say more damage is preferable.
He's got an Alistar backed up as his support. Tristana has been nerfed slightly in terms of her attack range in the current patch. But they get a buff to her rocket jump, which we saw JDG try to use unsuccessfully in the first match. They're going up against an Ezreal Leona, though. That's a very high damage lane. Yeah.
So it is a high damage lane. He does have to be aware of Leona specifically, just because the loss in range means that she has so much free leeway to walk up towards the Tristana and either zone him off level 2, or just kind of play around it and try and move the Tristana away from the wave so we get clearer pokes coming in from iBoy. So I like the lane from EDG, unless if Alistar finds a great mistake coming out of Mako to allow the burst combination from both Tristana and Alistar.
Feels like a very stock standard team composition from Vici here. I mean, very solid picks that we've seen throughout this split of the LPL. Nothing too interesting or unique. EDG have really shaken things up. I mean, we've got the Leona, Skarner, even Swain being thrown to the top lane.
Yeah, there's a lot. I would say the most interesting thing here for Vici is the fact that they do have priority around mid lane this time around. So I want to see how EasyHoon can impact these side lanes. We're talking about the different picks here, specifically Swain on the top side of the map. If we see EasyHoon taking this early, especially with Sejuani looking to rotate around that, buy control wards. Place it leaning towards the top side of the map and look to see if you can dive the Swain pick. I really do believe, sure, Swain is decent into the Gnar matchup, but it shouldn't be a pure 1v1. At the very most, I'd say level 6.
And not so much this split, but historically that's where Vici have thrived. Especially now they brought in Swift as their jungler. You said it best. I mean, they've taken a lot of teams to a 3-game series. It's not enough. And it's really do or die for Vici. Yes, it's not so much in their hands at the moment if they can make it to the playoffs. But if they can start winning all these matches at WE, drop a game or two, they could still make it a top 4, but a loss here would be lights out for Vici this split.
You'd have to have a real Cinderella moment. You'd have to be taking game after game. I mean, they still haven't gone up against Snake. Their next set, of course, since they're in Chongqing today, they can just relax and prep for their last day of the week where they go up against Snake, and that's going to be their largest challenge yet.
Yeah, let's go Mako. I'm with that one fan. Yes, you know what? Forget about these two teams. Let's go Mako. He's playing Leona here today.
Oh yeah, getting the Leona pick. I mean, come on. That's a hypey pick.
And I've been told as well that if he's able to pick up 12 assists total in this series, he would be #1 in the LPL in terms of most assists ever picked up.
Yep.
Surpassing.
Who is it?
Clearlove.
Ooh.
Who we have not seen nor heard of this split in the LPL.
That's really motivating.
No, that's true. That's wrong. We saw Clearlove once during the 5th year anniversary, where he just came out and told everyone, thank you for watching the LPL, really appreciate it. He's the first player ever registered, so to speak, in the LPL.
I'd say that's a big motivating, man. But if Mako ends up taking those 12 assists, you gotta come back. You gotta usurp the man. And don't gank bottom lane so he takes the share of the assist.
Oh no. So that's what you think is gonna happen. He's just gonna come back and start picking up more assists, kick Mako off, say, you know what, this is my title, don't take it away from me.
Oh yeah, it's gonna happen.
We can take a look at some of the Keystone Masters being picked up here. Aftershock being picked up later, no surprise. Top side map, Airy being picked up by Ray.
Yeah, it's just for the poke, of course. Throw out the Q, extra auto. That's the most one, I would say the most Keystone that we see from Gnar.
You can see Aftershock being picked up by Swift as well. We've seen Sejuani's rotate between Precision as well as Resolve Tree from time to time. But a lot of focus is going to be on the bottom lane, especially because now we're bringing in Snow. On top of that, it's Mako and iBoy, 2 of the strongest bottom lane duos in the league at the moment.
2 of the strongest bottom lane, and it's interesting to see what they can do.
They're going really aggressive. That's a rocket jump forward by Snow. What the heck is happening down here? He's just dead.
How'd he get there?
He's on the wrong side of the map.
What the heck?
Was he not watching the Jindong series? You don't do that.
All right. I was actually, thank God I didn't get to do it. I was about to give him some proper feedback say that he was doing quite all right when he went up against OMG, but no. Apparently he found himself on the opposite side of the lane.
It's a little bit of a brawl on the top side of the map as well, but just a summoner being burnt by both Swift and Ray during the first blood, which was picked up by Mako, so not an extra assist for him.
And the most impactful part of the top side skirmish is the fact that Swain does not have flash anymore. So going back into the lane where Luong is going to be able to walk up a little bit more aggressively. And if there is a mistake being made from Ray's side, even looking at the fact that it's pushing in towards Gnar, he has to be aware of the fact that Swift can make a turnaround game.
He only just hit level 3 as well, and there's a massive wave being pushed in towards Long. So you have to think that Long has an experienced lead now. He's controlled that wave. He has a summoner spell advantage as well. So Ray really has to play this one carefully, especially with Swift being proactive on the top side of the map.
Thankfully, even though the criticisms that I've levied towards Haro being not in tune with his top lane, this time around he does give him the extra protection so he can push up the lane. So it will be able to bounce back towards Swain, but because of that, Swift recognizing that, Swain pressuring up in the lane, knows that he can look towards the bottom side of the map. So I would say good communication from both teams, good communication from Haro so that he could let Swain get pushed up top side so he can get it evened out, the wave that is, while Swift was able to get good vision control towards Haro's bottom side jungle.
Checking in with the mid lane, however, EZHoon has been able to push Scout underneath this turret, picking up Unsealed Spellbook. He has to use any of his summoner spells, swaps over to teleport, comes back into this lane. But good pressure being dished out by EZHoon so far.
Yeah, and that's what you want to, that's what you expect. The fact that he, of course, doesn't have the TP, he should base right now, come back into the lane, because if he's ever at a item disadvantage, then he loses all sorts of pressure. That's fair. And I think what Scout, now that he does get back into the lane, recognizing that Orianna is base, that he gets another ward or an opportunity to place another ward onto Sejuani's camps. I would say Raptors immediately, just so when it does come back up, he gets a good idea of Sejuani's pathing. We shouldn't be expecting too much skirmishing from both Swift and Haro, but just that little bit of extra information allows Haro to look for a dive if possible.
And we've already seen the first recalls come out from the junglers as well. Haro's gone back, picked up his Stalker's Blade. Now it's his booster spot, so his Keystone is online. Predator being picked up by Haro today. Sejuani did go back towards Wolves now, moving over towards the Raptor side of the map, but there are no camps to be taken by these two junglers at the moment, and Haro's taking advantage of that. He's trying to take a dragon for his team.
Ooh, okay. I think he would need a little bit of help from the bottom side, just because that Ocean Dragon does do a little bit of damage.
Oh no!
Okay. Yep. Didn't get to see that. Lost a combination from Caveman, and he just all-in on that. So that was actually just a bad communication from both sides. Good that we get to see it.
Hashtag it was Caveman's fault.
Damn.
That was not on Snow.
Just injustice all around it.
I gave Snow a lot of flack for that rocket jump, accusing him of not watching the JDG series. That was not his fault.
It's like when you catch a man in the middle bit of a crime. Oh, here we go, though.
Now going for a bit of an engage in the bottom lane. Caveman does get the stun lock. Snow gets some decent damage. Just trading back and forth here. Iboy's not afraid to step up, dish out as much damage as he can. He's already picked up the tier in the bottom lane. Snow's still sitting on the Doran's Blade, so although there's no real combat advantage, Iboy will have a lot more mana, will stack up that mana mute quite quickly.
Yeah, just hurts for Snow, the fact that he did end up basing because of that death. And it was so early on in the game that he didn't want to get an extra potion. Not much you can actually buy.
Yep.
So he probably couldn't even afford a cult, to be quite frank. So I would like to see Swift later on pressure the lane just for a proper back from Snow.
Yeah. He's down a level as well now, which is not good for him. Slightly behind in experience against Ezreal. Mid lane's just been a farm fest between these two. We've already checked it all out before. EZHoon is pushing and Scout nice and easy. Scout's gone back and picked up a tier of the Goddess for himself as well, so he's slowly stacking that one up with his other carry Iboy.
Yeah, not much to expect in terms of the pace of the game, just because it's double tier composition from EDG and a proper scaling composition from Vici. EDG are online once they do hit 6, specifically Haro, very close to it. He can look for a gank in the mid lane. That should be a priority for Haro, is to play around mid. Hopefully Mako looks for a roam as well. But with how good control, like how strong the control is. Wait a second.
There we go, right into the mid lane. Haro flashes in, locks down EZHoon, uses the cleanse, tries to jump away. Shockwave only connects onto Haro. Scout still chasing him down. Realm Warp even coming through as well. Brings the Scorpion in underneath the turret. He's going to take turret aggro. The Scout picks up a kill in the mid lane. Meanwhile, top side of map, Ray's in trouble. Gets gnarred into the wall. Swift's going to try and get a counter gank here. Ray pops the ultimate. Is it enough to keep him alive? Taking a lot of damage for this one. Trying to kite this one back out. Does he have enough? No, he does not. Swift picks up that kill.
Yeah, good answer from Swift to go top side. Immediately while the 2 kills go through in the mid lane. So, great response overall, just because Haro wasn't going to be coming back after all of that. So Vici actually come out with an advantage in just because of that cross-map play.
Vici come out ahead because Haro died to the turret after that play.
Yeah.
And now the gold is only a 600 gold lead to EDG at the moment, which is what I wanted to talk about earlier. You said that Vici have the scaling team composition. They're the ones that can take us into the late game. EDG need to be proactive early, which we just saw from Haro as soon as he hit level 6. So I mean, if we do go late game, it's going to be all eyes on the Vici comp.
Yeah, it would be. Specifically around bottom lane and the Orianna once she gets her tier fully stacked. But looking at this, this is the main focus. Because so many Qs were missed on the side of EDG, specifically Scout. But yeah, that was just going to be an inevitability. If it was Rise who took aggro, he would have died off of that as well.
It's a good play coming out from Easy to try and cut that one back, pull something back for Vici. But now Mako is just sitting in his mid lane. Flash available for Leona, ultimate is up and available as well. Haro is trying to do some counter jungling, trying to take away Swift's red buff. He'll let that reset and pick it up for himself later.
Yeah, he could do that, even having Long on call, just to look towards it. Though Long has to go back into lane because that's a big wave hitting his turret. He's going to be missing a lot for this.
Scout's able to deny some vision, placing out a control wall, but Swift turns straight on top of Rise. EasyHoon is here as well. Good damage being dished out towards Scout. Forced to flash away. Swift responds as well. Shockwave only connects onto Haro, but Long is here, flashing over the wall. Gets a hyper proc. That's going to be the first kill going over towards Vici. Caveman's even looking to try and collapse on top of Ray as well. Great counterplay coming out from Vici Gaming.
Strong commitment as well. The fact that Vici were so committed to the play, going all in on it, knowing that if they commit or at least play towards the red buff, we will fight them, even bringing in the Alistar.
Hello, Mako's in the mid lane now, misses the first auto attack, doesn't matter because he gets the ultimate off as well. Scout's trying to lock him down, good damage coming out, and Scout gets an easy kill in the mid lane.
It's just a sad life for EasyHoon. Even helping out his own jungler, coming back and knowing that the Leona is still in the mid lane. Mako has been mid more than he has been with his AD carry.
So you're telling me Vici has a scaling team composition here, but they're the ones trying to push for this first turret at the top lane. iBoy as well as Mako working on that bottom lane turret, but they're pushing against a Tristana.
Just a lot of action. A lot of action. It was interesting to see even Snow moving towards the top side of the map, knowing that Alistar actually had to help the team. So it's just an audible being made from Vici, and they get a tower for their troubles, getting it first.
First turret being picked up, that's going to help out Tristana a lot because Snow is 30 CS behind iBoy. The initial early misplay that came out from Caveman costed Tristana so much in the bottom lane, but Vici have been able to play through the top side of the map quite fine. Even with some fancy footwork coming out from EasyHoon, it's brought them back into this match. They are still over 1,500 gold behind EDG. Yeah,
I would even say that EDG, even with the gold that they got mid lane, it's more valuable as well because it was the mid lane tower being taken. EDG have the ability to now come back onto the map and push for harder vision towards top side, red side jungle, and I do not think that Vici will be able to push them out. So it's hard if you're Vici, being able to make the decision to go top side and get the first tower gold and say, you know what, this is actually the best decision we can make just because we were put in such a bad position to start.
So where on this map we look towards next, Raz? Because 2 out of turrets have fallen. Everyone's gone back to base and shopped. Vici look like they're trying to group up around the top side of the map still.
Vici, sure, they're on the top side of the map to get the vision, but they shouldn't be able to hold the vision is the issue. Just because Swain's going back bottom lane to clear the wave, he's going to be able to move towards the mid lane and hold, so he's on call for top lane. Okay. All of the focus is going to be towards the top side of the map because there's no objective bottom side unless if EDG decide, I want a second Ocean Dragon. If that's the call from them, sure. But the right call would be towards that top lane tower because they have an option to being able to get kills as well.
Well, Vici thought that the right call would be to start Rift Herald, who gets angry and smacks Haro in the face.
I was trying to test to see what EDG are looking to do because had EDG not responded...
Oh, fancy footwork coming out from Scout though. Blindly dodges out, the ultimate comes out. Swift, no, it's not blind. He did have a ward there, but he's met with 3 members of Vici. Shockwave as well. Even Snow. Rocket jumps in to pick up the kill at the end of that. Caught wandering in Vici side of the jungle.
It's the 3rd time that Scout's done it, of course, looking towards getting vision on the Raptor camp. This time around, he does get caught just because Swift is in the area. They knew Swift was in the area, so... especially in this instance, you have to be able to call Haro towards you so you know that it's safe. Didn't happen this time around, so now they're going to be losing quite a bit of pressure that they could have had at this time.
He's still going for the Abyssal Mask as his first item here with Mercury Threads. Makes sense against Vici's team composition because everybody on their team has crowd control in this match.
Yeah, and the extra bit of magic just gives him the option to then walk up to Orianna and ignore the poke that she would have with the range advantage. Because if he gets in mid-range, he can actually skirmish quite well against the Orianna. So right now, especially since she has to go towards tier build to scale up for that first item, I would like Ryze's chances to be able to push back the matchup.
Vici are going to use this time to try and take a Rift Tower for themselves. No turrets are being pushed at the moment by EDG. Would allow Vici to equalize the turret disadvantage 2-1.
Just the window that they had with Ryze dying, coming back onto the map. So EDG decided to focus towards the Dragon. Good trade overall for Vici Gaming, just because they got the initial advantage.
EDG focus on what you were talking about earlier, Raz. They pick up the second Ocean Dragon of the game. That's 2. They stack up quite nicely.
Yeah, they have a good back and forth comp. I would just say specifically revolving around Ryze. So if like an initial engage doesn't work out, they do have the option to back away from it and look to re-engage.
Okay.
That's something you'd look towards with the Ocean Dragon that you'd have. And also, I would actually expect Haro to maybe even be able to get a blue for himself, because the tier stacking, and if you have the Ocean Dragon, that's the mana sustain coming through as well.
Well, EDG have now opened up the map. So they have mid lane out taken down, bottom lane out taken down as well. They've parked Ryze in the top lane. Swain's on the bottom side of the map. It seems like he's going to be against the only teleport user from the side of Vici. That's going to be Long. Was Vici respond by putting Tristana and Alistar top side of the map? It's just EDG trying to do a 1-3-1 for an extended period of time?
I want to say that this is a more defensive stance from EDG, because it was Vici Gaming that got the Rift Herald. They don't have the option to look for a play. They have to look towards where Sejuani is with the information that they have. So pushing mid lane and looking for vision is their option, and it's the right call from them. Just because if they can get ahead of the curve and know where the Rift Herald is, this time around it's on Swift, then they can look towards making it a useless stat.
Looks like they're just trying to track Swift at the moment. Playing around this red buff respawn timer, but a shockwave comes out from Easy, who doesn't deal too much damage. EDG say, you know what, we can initiate this. Teleport's coming in as a flank from them. Big knock up from Caveman as well. Flashes forward for the stun, locks down Mako. Vici are piling on in. Easy who gets the first kill of the fight. The big Birdman's in the back line looking to try and get a massive ultimate off. Is it going to be enough? Doesn't matter, because Scout gets the first kill. Long pushes him back further towards the team. Swift takes taken down. Double kill picked up by Scout. EDG win a team fight.
Yeah, 2 for 1, and it was the TPs coming through, both of them, that were the major deciding factor of it. Ray was such a threatening champion in that entire engage. Channeling his ultimate and just moving Vici Gaming away from it altogether. It gave Scout a great position to just fire off. So I'd love to see it again, just to see where Ray came in, because it really made it hard for Long to look for a proper ulti, because there wasn't going to be follow-up.
On top of that, it's Swain. He teleports in, presses R, and he's ready to fight. Long had to try and build up to Mega Gnar before that. Had a good flanking teleport, though. And the shockwave from Easy here, and he hit both the tanks there, Raz. Didn't do anything to Haro or Mako.
Yeah, that's the issue. EasyHoon, if he gets this ulti off later on in the game, it's impactful. But with the item build that he has, it has to be used as setup rather than damage, because he's not doing damage. So for Vici Gaming, being happy here with how much, you know, setup that was there for themselves, they just don't have the lethality, being able to kill out Haro. He's able to escape throughout the entirety of it. Had they got the kill, they would have then looked towards Ray and maybe focused him down. They just didn't have the ability to keep Haro in the fight with the damage that they have.
Very tanky Skarner and a Leona with a W and Aftershock. Not going to be someone that's easy to burst down from Vici. They do get a kill in response. 2 for 1 trade there. It's not all that bad. They've yet to use the Rift Tower, which is going to expire soon. It feels like Swift's going to try and throw it into the bottom lane here.
Yeah, the worst thing about it for Vici is the fact that Ryze was able to get himself 2 kills off that. Now he's 4-1-0, has the CS advantage going up against EasyHoon. EasyHoon has no control over the mid lane. That's what we wanted to see here, was EasyHoon having control of mid lane early on, and yeah, he did. But now with these skirmishes and how they've been favoring Scout, he can walk up to the lane easy as pie. In fact, they've just been putting him top lane to deal with the 2v1.
And he has a big gold lead for himself as well. It's about 800 gold ahead of EasyHoon. The biggest lead is going to be from the Collector Mancy Azure, about 2,000 gold up ahead of Snow. He's going for Trinity Force as well. Fully upgraded Mana Mune. He's going to pack a punch in these fights.
Yeah, and I wonder where the point of focus for EDG is going to be, knowing that Rift Trail is being placed bottom lane. I don't think they're going to even look for it, especially since Haro is already on the opposite side of the map. They're just going to look to trade and maybe look for a dive mid lane. So next 30 seconds, going to be important for EDG.
Shockwave again being thrown up by Easy and connects onto Mako through Aftershock as well as the W. Mako says, you know what? I will reinitiate straight on top of Easyhoon. Cleanse forced to use early. Mako is, however, the first casualty. Easyhoon gets that kill. However, Swain picks one back up. Snow got pulled back by Haro. Double kill being picked up by Ray. Once again, EDG turn around a skirmish.
I was just so confident from Vici. They tried to start the fight earlier, so the top side of the map where EDG were, they don't have the opportunity to look towards mid lane. But they have a Rise. He's going to get there faster with his ulti. Yeah, that was a little awkward.
Lung is able to push down 2 turrets in the bottom lane with the help from Rift Herald. However, EDG, they already took down top lane Outer. They push through mid lane. They get a team fight and mid lane in a turret.
Yeah, this is disaster mode if you're Vici Gaming. The fact that now that you've lost so much control of the top side of the map, and it's 18 minutes in, which means in 2 minutes you have to deal with Baron now. Baron pressure that if you're Vici game, you have no way to control. So look where Rise and Skarner is. That's the most important part because Vici think they have the time to get onto Mako, burst them down. TP comes through, Rise Rift, or at least he uses ulti to get into range. So EDG are already in range, so by the time Mako is dead, they can set up for the fight.
And that was everything again being burnt onto Mako. You had Shockwave, you had Swift throwing his ultimate out, you even had Caveman throwing his full combo at Leona.
And in their defense, Vici were just looking for a drive-by. Get one kill, back away, because EDG would maybe look to push for a mid lane turret, an inner tower. And they wouldn't be able to do that if their support is dead. But of course, Sejuani missing ulti, and then the damage not piling up afterwards was a defining factor of why they weren't able to do that.
Despite things looking good for EDG, Vici have been stopping the bleeding, so to speak. They're still only 3 to 4 in terms of turrets. The gold is relatively even. It's about a 2,000, oh sorry, almost a 3,000 gold lead in favor of EDG, but not quite yet. 19, 20 minutes into the match, it's not too far for Vici to come back from.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be all in the picks that they're looking for, the pick potential. If they do catch Scout once again, they already got him before. If they catch him out sleeping, looking for an extra bit of vision, if he didn't learn from his mistake, then yeah, that's another window that Vici Gaming has to look for another fight. That's all they really do have to look for, though. Look for an Orianna ulti to get somebody, maybe a Sejuani ulti. Those are their main kind of picking points. If they can't get it, then they lose out.
You can tell that Easier really wants to kill all the tanks inside of EDG, picking up a Void Staff second, right after the Saracen Vrace. Has a QSS for himself, 2 being picked up by the side of Vici, 1 in the top lane, 1 in the mid lane. Still none being picked up by Snow just yet. Yeah,
Snow just wants his Infinity Edge. If he can get it, then maybe he looks to get the pick off. But he's just going to be their primary form of damage. And especially since he's so far behind iBoy, I would be surprised, I guess, just to see if he picks it up, just because he doesn't want to lose the 800 or so gold.
iBoy's already far ahead. As we mentioned, no Iceborne Gauntlet for this Ezreal, going straight for the Trinity Force. Setting up a Death Brush again. They have this red buff timer down pat, locking down Caveman first. Doesn't use his ultimate there, uses it relatively late. Shockwave is good onto 2 members. Ultimate comes out from Mako, and iBoy snipes Caveman. Big pick coming out from EDG.
And that was good enough for EDG to look towards Baron now. Sure, you lose Leona ulti. Sure, you don't have... actually, I still think they have Haro ulti. Yeah, Skarner ulti can just pick up a fight if they can get it.
Round 1 from the top lane, they've cut off Swift. Ghost being used by Scout. EDG is slowly chasing down Sejuani. A kill here could mean Baron. Long is trying to use this time while Swift gets taken out to try and chip away a bottom lane inhibitor, take something back for Vici. And Swift is buying as much time as he can for Vici at the moment. Yeah,
using Flash so he can get so close to the EDG base so they don't have to immediately turn towards Baron. But they have the timing now.
And they do that now. So EDG are on top of Baron. Long is trying to take down bottom lane inhibitor turret. In fact, backing off. 2 other carries from the side of Vici are working on the mid lane inner turret. Does he go for a teleport? He's about to go Mega. Would be a good time.
I think he is.
And he is. Straight into the Baron pit. Already down to about 500 hit points. Doesn't cancel. Actually does cancel it. EDG get the Baron for free. Lung can't push for that inhibitor turret.
Yeah, I wonder what the call was like, because Snow and Caveman were entertaining it. They were moving towards it slowly, but they just didn't have the vision on the HP of Baron. It's just a safe call to know that they've been there for long enough. They're going to be able to get it, and you're going to be in a bad position. So I think that was just bad an internal clock for them to be like, maybe we can look for this play now.
Seems like a bad call coming out from Vici and John, because Lung could have chipped away at that turret, potentially taken it down.
Yes.
And Vici would have gotten 2 turrets for a couple of kills being picked up by EDG and a Baron, which, again, has been the nature of this match. EDG get ahead, Vici takes something back at least, so they're never too far behind. But this could break open the game for EDG.
Yeah, it would have been a good setup, too, because EDG have been so focused on putting Ray with the team and turning it into a 5v4, 5v5 situation, that Nara could have actually taken advantage later on and maybe look for a split push focus, but that's not going to be the case. So EDG are just going to essentially still go on with the same plan, but not have the worry of just an inhibitor being threatened.
It's still about 2,000 gold leads for both the mid laner as well as the AD carry from the side of EDG. The rest of the map is still fairly even. They've got Thomas the tank in the mid lane now as well, chipping away at this inhibitor turret. Vici either have to try and force a fight or somehow draw aggro away from this minion, but that turret's just going to fall.
Yeah, they have to look for a fight at some point, but they're not confident.
Oh, they got iBoy. Swift nails him with the ultimate, but he's able to escape from that crowd control, instead focusing on the right side of the inhibitor. Caveman taking a lot of damage through that big shockwave. Will come up from Vici, who does next to no damage. He has to use Sever Embrace to stay alive. Ray flashes forward as well, is in amongst the entire team. Mako deep into the back lines. Snow's going to fall down as well. EDG are just now cleaning up the team fight. Loom can't even retreat back towards his fountain. Does get a stun to iBoy, who flashes forward. Ace being picked up by EDG.
23 minutes in, and it's just no stopping EDG. Swift recognized, I mean, they have to pull the trigger at some point, so he finds the AD carry, and naturally you're going to throw it. Only problem is, it's iBoy, and he's on Ezreal. There's no following up a man that just kind of phase shift out of there.
He does get locked down, but it doesn't matter for Vici. It's too little, too late. EDG pick up game number 1.
That's clean. Very clean from EDG. Looks great. I mean, as clean as you can get if you look towards the recent sets. So I love the fact that when they did have the lead, and specifically Mako looked towards mid lane quite frequently. He was always looking for a play, getting strong control wards in the blue side jungle, looking for a pick at all times. He ended up getting the pick, so that was clean from him. And even though there were questions on the top side skirmishes, this was probably the most convincing game that we've seen from EDG in the last, I would say, week or so.
It was a decisive finish, I'll tell you that. They got the Banner of Command at the right time. Right as they picked up Baron buff. Allowed them to get that, that's an empty chair. Allowed them to pick up the 24-minute victory for EDG. Vici did held on relatively well until that final fight. They were, what, 2,000 to 4,000 gold behind at any point in the match. It was just a sharp drop at the end. So EDG did close out the game very well.
Yeah, I still think that even though the gold lead was there for Vici, it was mostly just that EDG were getting mid lane push, so they could have the mid lane tower available for themselves. So I still think that Ray had, or at least specifically Scout, had such a large advantage for the team fights. The skirmishes were going to be very difficult. So that was just an example of, even though the gold lead was in favor of Vici Gaming, the setup was in favor of EDG.
And we saw a lot of times, as FLICKR, and once again is in my head now, I'm now Pulse, Pulse is now me. But again, we saw EasyHoon, he had a good laning phase, was controlling a lot of these team fights, but burning his shockwave relatively easy and focusing on tanks as well. Even the last few team fights didn't have enough items, didn't have enough gold to burst down the carries from the side of EDG.
And that's just the difference of itemizing in 8.2, 8.4, and 8.5. The mage items for Orianna changes a lot. You don't get the flat penetration immediately. You have a tier build now, so you have damage later on when you finish up your tier and a little bit of your Morellonomicon. If you don't get that for yourself, then you should be holding on your ulti and being more of a support in team fights, so you can get a proper setup for your real damage in that fight.
Signs of life coming out from Vici, but it's EDG that pick up set number 1. Let's send it over to our analyst to break down that game.
Now arriving at Skirmish City, please buckle up and enjoy the ride, because we're coming in with EDG and Vici, who just fought constantly. And when we're looking at like a top team from EDG, we don't want to see fights all the time like that.
Yeah, well, the issue was that that game ended at 24 minutes, and there were 20 kills at 24 minutes. So, it takes 2 minutes minion spawn, so we were almost at like a kill a minute that was coming out. And when we pull up the draft, the big issue there is that Vici are running an Orianna Tristana composition. So I want to be at that boardroom meeting where they were like deciding the comp, and they're like, okay, Tristana, Orianna, this is it. Okay, what are we gonna do? Fight at 15 minutes. No, don't fight at 15 minutes.
And so it's just like 2 minutes, rocket jump.
I know, exactly. You suddenly pan down bottom, the observer's caught off guard because Tristana's literally underneath iBoy and Mako's tower, just like dead for first blood. You're like, oh, I guess there goes the bottom lane. That was, again, another successful JD experiment gone awry.
Yeah, pretty much. And for us, you were drawing comparisons to that first series we saw today with Invictus Gaming and JD, and it's just like, well, yes, it kind of ended in the same way that those games did, but the ends didn't justify the means necessarily.
Yeah, it was really messy. So we pulled one replay from this series, and I just kind of have to give a little bit of explanation going into the replay. We pulled it because I felt that this was the perfect replay to showcase what EDG are struggling with right now. And my producer at the time was like, "Are you sure you want this replay?" I was like, "Yeah, because if EDG lose, then it's perfect, and even if EDG win, it still showcases like all of the growing pains that they're going with." So before the replay plays, what has happened is that a successful tower dive has gone on EasyHoon. Now, Haro did end up trading 1-for-1, but the important keynote is that EasyHoon's summoners are burned, and she's against a Rise Skarner, so she cannot step forward in lane, so automatically all lane pressure and early rotation advantage goes to Scout. So with that information, Haro decides to invade and to contest the red buff. We can go ahead and roll the replay, and like all of this, I completely agree with. What I don't agree with is how they're doing it. Why is Scout standing on that side of the buff? Why didn't he walk around the top? And we see this all the time. Scout standing on the wrong side of fights, not synergized or synced up, and then suddenly it forces him to burn his flash early. They can that entire thing where they should have had full control over that type of buff and that type of situation. EDG slide backwards, and against Vici, like that's inexcusable. And against a top team, you lose the game there.
Exactly, and Haro's even caught out of position, then gets killed off the back of that as well. And then when also against a jungler like Swift, or in fact many of the junglers in the LPL, because we have some pretty good junglers in the LPL, they will exploit you. And I will definitively say that Swift pretty much just won the early game against his counterpart Haro, and it meant that they could open up the top lane. That ended up winning. Your priority Swain ended up losing lane really bad, and then it was like, well, this game could actually go on for like 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and then Vici could maybe even scale. It didn't end up happening, but the opportunity was there because of the early game from EDG.
Yeah, and then Vici unfortunately threw it away because they opted into a lot of these fights that they did not need to take. Again, there was multiple fights over that red buff. Vici can just let it go. It's just the red buff at that point. Continue to farm your lane. Sacrifice that buff to get experience and gold onto your 2 carries and the Tristana and the Orianna. It's still very hard to break that, especially because Trish was rushing Static Shiv, and Orianna can wave clear pretty much indefinitely. But EDG, they understood where their composition was strong. As soon as iBoy, he didn't even have Trinity Force. He just had his Sheen and his Muramana, and they immediately ran into team fights because they knew that they were already stronger than the enemy ADC. And like Raz was talking about with Orianna not being able to itemize into early penetration, she also wasn't capable of doing any early game damage, and then Rise was also fed. So it was a good read on the back half by EDG, but that's not where their problems are. When they're grouped up with Mako, EDG continued to look strong. He's the captain, he's the shot caller. It's when you just have Scout and Haro and Ray that need to plug in, the top side of the map is an absolute mess.
Yeah, the start, as you said, was very messy. And Frask, I'm going to need you to cover your eyes and probably take off your headset as well, because our MVP of this match will be Scout.
That's fine. I mean, Scout, he carried for 1 and 8. He got the early attention from the jungle routes. His Realm Warps, his Rise, he was the primary damage, working with Ray in those team fights to clean up the back half of them that Vici kept running into. But again, if you want to focus on where the problems are with EDG, how do they correct this, why are they not a top team right now, part of that blame does go on Scout. He is very inconsistent about how he is standing in the team fights, which is really punishing because he is such a talented player. Like, this guy is the double-edged sword. He will win you and lose you games, and he does that all the time for EDG.
Exactly. That's why he will pick up MVPs, because the guy has mechanics. Once you stick him in a fight, then if he just gets to unload on his champion, then he will put in work. But that's going to do it for us. We're going to send it to a quick break before getting to Game 2.